Hey guys, welcome to this new video. Today is gonna be a special video and I have a special guest with me. Before I let Pedro introduce himself, let me tell you something. So actually this subject, I was thinking about this for a couple of months and I struggled because I couldn't find the right person to talk about the subject because it's a little bit sensitive and you have to find the right angle to talk about that. So today I invited Pedro. We're gonna go ahead. But before that, so this video will be important if you are a business owner, if you are an expatriate and wanna move overseas. You can be a manager or a C-level. We met actually at an event, and you share about your journey living in different continents and finally ended up in Vietnam. And what I like from your share was also when you related everything to the cultural gap and the language, or I would say the mindset barrier between foreign perspective and Vietnamese perspective. So yeah, again, I guess this video will be insightful for you guys if you are someone that plan long-term living in Vietnam. So thank you, Pedro.
It's a pleasure to be here together with you. Yeah.
So can you start by introducing yourself?
Yes. My name is Pedro Vilaça. I'm Portuguese. I had a long record in the same company, in Siemens Healthcare, Siemens Healthineers. So I started many years ago in my country, but I had let's say the chance to live abroad. So this is my third expat experience, even if I work in 4 countries, because I work also in Germany, but living in Portugal. So I had, let's say, a long record in the same company, which is good because I can compare how it is in the different countries inside the same company. I lived many years in South America, so in two different opportunities in 2 different countries. So I believe I can easily compare what is to live in South America, to Europe, or to Asia. Yeah. So this is my first experience in Asia, and may say as a starting for our discussion, this is a very easygoing country. Very different from what people tend to believe before knowing, but in fact is despite the language that is a little bit difficult, but is a very, very easy country to live.
Okay. So maybe before we talk more about the working environment, I have a few questions for you. It will be more related to this Asian big things. I mean, many economists are talking about Asia that have to be the next thing, all the opportunities gonna go. I read recently a study from PwC talking about what the world will be in 2050, and according to some statistics and to some trends, they foresee that Vietnam will be one of the biggest kind of increasing in terms of GDP per capita. So basically, yeah, there will be again a lot of opportunities and a lot of things going on. What is your perspective about that, about Asia and especially Vietnam?
Maybe we should start with Vietnam. Asia is more known from the people. Vietnam is a surprise, not because it has a projection of one of the fastest growth GDP in the world. Of course, also we need to take a look for the baseline, because we are really starting for a low base. But despite that, it's really growing very fast, the country. And you see the opportunities everywhere, okay? For me, it's even more relevant because we have all of these projections prior to COVID, but it's more relevant to share what is happening and what we are living today here in Vietnam. First, we are looking for a very big country, so almost 100 million people. And we are looking for a country that controlled quite well the COVID topic. Of course, it was very, let's say, critical, the fact that they closed completely the country. There was a lot of complaints for that. But fact is, after almost 1 year, that we should realize and recognize that was well done, because we are living in a country that almost has no cases, a big country. How the economy moved within this context of closing country, and this is for me the biggest surprise. In fact, of course, the economy suffered for a while, but we come to a stage after almost 9 months where it doesn't matter if the country open or not anymore. Because they were able to control the situation in a way of economy suffered a little bit, but the economy continues to run. They have a kind of internal circular economy that is running well. And in fact, when you look for the data for this year, there is still a positive growth. Despite all of these difficulties, they still grow in a range of 3%, which is amazing. Yeah. And this means a lot about what is really the economy, internal economy. Is a very, very dynamic market, very big. They have an internal market that per se is good and big enough, yeah. But they have one thing that I believe is more relevant is really a resilient people and resilient market, which means that despite all of the difficulties, they were able to reinvent themselves. And you see, this is even more interesting, you see every day new business coming. Yeah. Even in suspect business like restaurants, like bars, said, come on, where is the people for that? Fact is that they are opening and reinventing. And despite the big hotels, chains, fact is that the locals are able to reinvent themselves and the economy continue. And even yesterday I was in the night in the streets, crowded of people everywhere. The things are running normally, which means that really, this is self-sustainable market, and this is something very, very important for the future. Yeah.
Yeah. So especially in this COVID time, we see that like Vietnam managed to kind of resist and even grow compared to the other markets in Southeast Asia. About the long-term vision and about like the big trends and the dynamism of this big like part of the world.
They still have some barriers, and I will probably it's a little bit sensitive, but I will share with you.
Yeah.
These countries still have a problem regarding regulation in general. Okay, is well regulated, but needs some fine tuning on that, and it still have let's say an environment that needs to be more healthy in terms of business. Compliance is still an issue in this country. Authorities are taking this seriously, so they are changing the processes. They are trying really to come to a next step. I believe this is absolutely essential if they really want to have a sustainable growth. Okay, they are taking the right measures right now. Of course, it's a little bit painful for the society and for the country itself because it's not used to that. But it's really something that is needed. And I believe if they can implement all of these changes, all of these small, big steps forward, the country can grow sustainably.
Okay.
It's really something that exists a little bit in Asia in general. Here it was quite, let's say, quite impacting and creating some barriers to the growth. But now that they are taking the measures, I believe that they will be able to put it in a different level.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's good that you share also from like a C-level perspective and also with your experience of managing big corporation across basically worldwide. I mean, a worldwide corporation. If we can maybe come back now to the let's say an expat. You are talking to an expat, and you put yourself when you were like one year and a half ago or 2 years ago when you just arrived. What was the biggest challenges you had to overcome?
The biggest challenge in the beginning, and now is still the same, is about change management. Okay. I found that it was for me a very surprise. It's a very young society. The average age in my company is really low. So if we compare with other countries, it's a surprise because we are above 30 years old as the average. So I thought that people were more able to change. That's not true. There is a lot of resistance to change, and change management inside the company is really something difficult. For me, it was a surprise. It's not impossible, but it's difficult and takes a long time and a long effort of communication to convince people to change, because by default they are against. Okay. Doesn't matter what you want to do. If you want to change, they are against. So, and you need to convince and to work on that. Yeah. Second thing that is also not easy is to empower the people to take decision. Everybody tell you that wants to be the manager. That's obvious, yeah. But the problem is that, okay, I give you the chance that you are the manager. I empower you to take decisions, and they are not used to take decisions. This is a second barrier. In fact, is about the maturity of the processes, maturity of middle management, and it was for me. It's not a negative surprise, but it's a difficulty that you need to overcome. So you need really to first empower, second give trust and confidence to the people, and really you need to push them to take decisions. because they are not, and this is a cultural barrier, they are not used to that. They are always waiting for the boss to take the decision, to raise the voice, to be the one that communicates. And this is very, very clear when you have, for instance, meetings with people from external, with customers, for instance. Everybody is expecting that the boss is the one that takes the lead, and not necessarily, yeah? So this is something that you need to teach, to coach them, because it should be different. And I believe it will be different. It takes time.
Okay. And so now you give more the struggle part and the more difficulties. Can you talk more about the other aspect, like what's from your experience being a foreigner with a little bit of experience, they said 5 years, 10 years overseas, you come back to Vietnam, then what can happen here?
In the positive side, first, it's evident they respect a lot the foreigners. So you are well cared by the people and by your organization. So they don't see, because you are an expat, they don't see you as an enemy. They really support you, respect you, and are willing to learn, which is very good. And of course, what you can bring a different perspective. You have a global benchmark. And the one thing that also you can bring, because this is a society that you see a lot of small conflicts inside the organization, even personal conflicts. What you bring is that you are completely neutral, which means that you will not take any party, and you can more easily judge and support the decision process, and also to let all of them grow in a healthy way. So this neutrality, I believe, is an added value, and you cannot have it if you are a local. So you really need to be external to their own problems. So I had been realizing that that's an added value.
And you shared the first time we met about some tips and some strategies that you have to kind of help yourself to spread your leadership inside your company, to be able to be close to your partners or the people inside your company. Can you share with us some of the things you kind of implemented?
Yes, the first thing is about communication. Yeah? So you need to be very careful when you communicate, and you need to be sure that they really understand what you are saying, because by default they say they understand, not necessarily, because they don't understand the underlines of the discussion first, and secondly, there are still some barriers with the English, which means that sometimes they understand but not the full message. So you need to be careful about that and be clear, try to be clear in your communication and try really to share it. Secondly, they are not used to an open leadership style, which means because it's my own style, I always have my office door open. They are more than welcome to sit, to talk. And according to their experience, yes, if it is my direct report, they feel comfortable to do that. The other levels not. And I really promote that anyone can come there and say and share with me, because the only way that you can really understand what is happening in the organization is to talk all levels. So I really, really recommend this openness, knowing that in the beginning is not necessarily well perceived. It takes some time, and it takes a lot of time that they really trust you, which means that they always share until a certain level of intimacy, but really, really to be able to open themselves, it takes time.
Okay.
So, but this is, you need to let's say, win the trust of the people, and the only way to do it is communication. Communication and be available for them. Yeah? Another thing that they are not used to that, and it really contributes a lot that for your trustable position in the organization, when they have a problem, normally they are not willing to escalate easily. They are afraid. Yeah? They are afraid to be judged. Really, really, when you realize that there are something, you need not only to volunteer to be there, but really you need to go and to help them to solve. They still have, this I see this many times happen, they still have some barriers when they communicate with the C-level, from the customer side or from the authorities. There is a lot of hierarchy in the society, and sometimes they don't feel comfortable. So the fact that you go together, you take the lead, you help them, this is well perceived, and this really, really strengthens the relation.
Okay.
So I strongly recommend that you volunteer and do it. Go. Go outside, even if sometimes it's a little bit strange, because you are in certain meetings that, of course, naturally they switch to Vietnamese and you are lost. But even that, the fact that you are there, it's important.
Okay. Thanks, Pedro. It was very insightful. I'm pretty sure it's going to help a manager, a business owner overseas that wish to maybe move to Vietnam. Actually, we met at a branding event, and you share during this event about how important is it from a manager and a C-level perspective to also have a certain aura online and have a certain personal branding. Can you share maybe some tips and strategy that you implement inside your company to be somehow close to your partners and to your circle around you?
Yes. It's quite important nowadays to have a digital presence. Of course, not only digital, because this way that you present yourself should be also offline, but online definitely is something that you need to take care. We have a kind of policy that is not a written policy in our company, that we try to avoid to publish everybody the same thing. Yeah? Which is natural. So we don't have, for instance, LinkedIn from the company, official one. We use my LinkedIn as the general manager to publish the larger events or what we are doing in the country. But of course, my team is also allowed to do something. But we try to not do the same, yeah? Because you see it is a common mistake. In some companies, everybody is publishing the same because we have the access to the same, and it's not nice, because at the end of the day, we'll have the same network. Yeah. So we have this kind of rule, but of course we empower people to publish in the proper way. Also, it's important, and the reason or the reasons why we should do it. Of course, we need to promote the company as an overall, but also I believe that there is a self-promotion of our employees that are important. First, because they should be known. Of course, there is a risk on that. Maybe competition wants them later, but that's a risk that we should take. Yeah. But more than that, it's important because if they start doing that, they have a better self-awareness about themselves, what they are doing, and they also probably take more care about the communication, and they learn from that. So that's why I believe it's really, really important. Secondly, the fact that we are forcing to do it in a more professional way also creates some learning, auto-learning from ourselves to be more professional. Because at the end of the day, we need to not only to present the company, to present ourselves, and if you are more used to that, it's more natural. Which means that, and this is, let's say, a growing thing. First time you have an interview or first time you publish or write something, you don't know exactly. So you will learn with the experience. So that's why it's so important nowadays to do it. Of course, we need to be careful because we need to do it very professional. And another thing that, and also we internally, we have this concern and we try to share this idea with the people. Just publish something if it is relevant. So avoid to over-publish or share things that are really not relevant for external. So we really are, let's say, taking care of these basic rules. And of course, there is a clear separation in what is your private media, which is a different story, and what is company. But definitely is something that you should do, and you should take care about yourself. If you ask someone, what you want to do next, probably strange, because everybody has the willing to be promoted, to grow, but not everybody really do the exercise to think deeply about that. What is needed, what really I want to do in 10 years, what are the gaps? This is a kind of exercise that you don't do so often, and this is also about and related with the personal branding. Because if you don't know the way, if you don't know where you want to go, you don't know the way, definitely. So you need really to insist on this. And even when you talk about career management and development of the people, is an exercise that you should do. And it's very related with personal branding. So you really need to coach people and to challenge people. Stop. What do you want to do? Are you sure? Okay, you want to go on that direction. That's okay. What are the gaps? So, but it's really something people is not used to do. So I really, really recommend, and this is all about personal branding, because also if I want to go from A to B, not only I need to understand what are my gaps, what are the way, but I need to have, let's say, my personal branding to be able to convince the others to reach that. Because if I'm saying I want to be the CEO of the global company, and if not, nobody believes on that, I will never be the CEO of the big company. So, and which means that all of that, so career management and personal branding are very tight. It's not separate things, and moreover that now we have a lot of exposure and it's very easy. Yeah?
Okay. Thank you, Pedro, a lot for the sharing, really based on your experience and the different continents you live and you work in. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation we just had. If you want, we put on the description some links so people can reach you out.
Yes, sure. My email is always available, my phone number. I'm more than willing to support and to help people.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, very good, Pedro. So I hope you guys enjoy, and it will bring you like more general, like the big picture of how is Vietnam opportunities, like in a global perspective, especially in this time you share after COVID, right? Post-COVID, that here everything is already booming and kind of the economy is kind of already starting. Of course, everything is still struggling, but we see always the good part of the situation, and also your personal sharing about how is it working in a Vietnamese environment from a foreign perspective. So thank you again,
Thank
Pedro.
you very much. I'm more than happy to support.
Okay,
Thank you.
And I see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.